It's eating him alive right now. It's still eating him alive. That's Carson Beck. That's what he said the other day at the Manning camp, talking about the Alabama and the SEC championship game 6 months ago, 7 months ago now. Hey, look, it's July and SEC Media Days are a couple weeks away. They haven't announced which players will be representatives for Georgia there. I assume Carson Beck is going to be one of them, and I assume he's going to get another question about the SEC championship game in which Georgia lost 27-24 against Alabama. And don't worry, for all of you guys who have been complaining or angry that we talk about Alabama, quote unquote, too much on this channel, this is not about Alabama. This is about Georgia and how they might respond based off of that game, right? And it just happened to be against Alabama. It could have been against Missouri. It could have been against Florida. It could have been against anybody. But it was the Crimson Tide that ultimately helped end Georgia's championship, their three-peat hopes a year ago, Carson Beck's first season as the starter. What do we know about Carson, if that's eating him alive? What do we know about Carson Beck? Came to Georgia, was excited about it, had an opportunity to maybe start his freshman year, right? That 2020 season. You don't know what's going on. Is it Stetson Bennett? Is it Jamie Newman? Is it JT Daniels? Who's going to be healthy? Who's going to be available? He ends up never getting the nod, right? And Stetson starts a lot of the 2020 season. And then 2021, he's a sophomore. It's year two. It's a four-star quarterback. And is he second or third on the depth chart? That's kind of the question. But he stuck around. And it's JT Daniels, and then it's Stetson Bennett. And, hey, against UAB, week 2, when JT Daniels is hurt, it's going to be Carson Beck. Carson Beck is the QB2. That's what Kirby told the media. And it turns out that either their minds were changed later that week because that was on a Monday, but then by Thursday night, it's like, hey, we think it's going to be Stetson Bennett starting against UAB. And Carson Beck, that happened. And he didn't, he got out there. In that game, he got out there and threw some balls, but he wasn't the starter, and he wasn't the guy that threw for 5 touchdowns in one half or 5 touchdowns in a record amount of time like Stetson Bennett did against the Blazers that day. All of that happened, and Georgia goes on to win a national championship with Carson Beck on the sidelines. And then you go into year 3. Well, Stetson's old. Maybe he'll leave. No, Stetson returns. He's 25, and he's out there becoming a Heisman finalist and helping Georgia go undefeated and go back to back. And all of a sudden, Carson Beck has spent 3 years on the bench as a guy who I don't think, thought he might only go to college for 3 years. Thought he might be a 1 or 2 and done guy. Well, then he finally gets his turn. It's 2023. College football is changing. People are surprised that he waited. And I think that there will be more examples of him waiting, of people waiting their turn. And Carson Beck is kind of one of the first examples of that. And they don't do it. All he saw the last 2 years was Georgia winning a national championship, and then when it's his turn to be the guy that's kind of leading that battle, being the quarterback for that battle, they don't win the national championship. And they fall short. And in a game against Alabama where, look, Georgia, I don't want to rehash all this because I want to start moving forward and looking forward in the future, but this is what's going on right now, right? And we're craving content. Their season, their championship hopes ended when they lost to Alabama. They lost on the wrong day is kind of the way that I'll put it, because when you look at it, why would a 12-1 Georgia that lost by 3 points to Alabama not be one of the 4 best teams in college football? Well, because of politics. Collegiate politics, not really politics, more so just trying to find the option. I think that what the committee is this is a little bit of a prediction, but I think the committee wanted to figure out, hey, which 4 teams can we put where we make the least amount of people mad? Because there was a situation where at least one team was going to be pretty upset they weren't going to make the college football playoff. You end up pissing off 2 fan bases with Georgia and Florida State. Alabama and Texas are the ones that get in, and that's how it works. We don't have to worry about that anymore because that 4-team system is gone. How does that affect this coming year? I mentioned this, I believe, back in May. It could have been back in April. This game is one of the best things that's going to happen for this Georgia team in 2024. That SEC championship loss against the Tide for Georgia is eating Carson Beck alive. I imagine it's eating a lot of the other players alive. I don't know that it eats Kirby Smart alive. I think just the concept of winning is what eats him alive. What eats me alive is when you don't sign up for the newsletter. Make sure you're looking at that. It's linked down below in the description. My name is Ryan Curley, and I'm asking you to do it, or it's going to eat me alive, and I appreciate those who have already done it. I think that those things help Georgia in 2024. Do they really need help? They were the betting favorite for everything. The 10.5 win line, the odds to win the national championship, make the college football playoff. They're 1 or 2 in pretty much every odds. They've got number 1 in Heisman. They've got some All-American guys that are projected to be All-Americans. On the video game, projected to have a top 2 offense and a top 2 defense. The best offense and one of the best defenses. So do they really need all this extra motivation? Well, no, they have the team to go out there and do it, and we know that. But I think that a lot of the guys who were on the team from last year, in which you're returning a lot of talent, including your starting quarterback and Carson, it's a motivating factor. It's 100% a motivating factor. You look at the SEC Championship in 2021. Georgia sleptwalked a little bit. I don't really know another way to put it, but they didn't look like the Georgia of the rest of that season. A very special season for Georgia that has that blemish on it. That was a motivating factor for what they did in the college football playoff, because people were doubting, hey, or they were saying ridiculous things like Alabama's still on top, and I was about to use a term that I don't want to use on here, but they ended up winning and avenging that loss and getting that title and changing history for Georgia. Well, this is a different situation, but I think that loss ultimately helps you get motivated for the next season, because that concept of complacency, I think, wears away a little bit. In a couple weeks, or in a little bit less than 2 weeks, we'll hear from Kirby about what his message is, right? SEC Media Days, and we'll get the message for what's going on, at least for now, what the message will be. A year ago, it was complacency and fighting complacency, and that was it. Because they won 2 national championships, they knew how to win, and then they were going to have to turn around and do it again, because the expectations were that this team was going to be able to do it again. They had the odds. They had a team that was capable of doing it, in my opinion. Well, they can't three-peat now. The history is not there. 3 and 4 years would be spectacular. I believe that's been done before. 3 and 4 years is not a three-peat. It's not as much pressure. And there's a lot of guys on the team that weren't contributors to a national championship in a significant way on the field, right? For example, C.J. Allen. Or, even Carson, even though he had been around, he doesn't have to get that. There's a lot of new faces and a lot of guys that weren't on that back-to-back team, because now we're far enough removed from it, and now we're removed from the concept of the three-peat. I think that will probably be good for the mental, I don't know what's the right way to put it, the mental focus. The focus of this team. There were plenty of distractions a year ago. All of the car stuff, all of the legal stuff, there was a lot going on for Georgia. Transitioning between quarterback and a legacy that Stetson left. It was a dramatic few. It's been a dramatic, as positive and as thrilling and as fruitful the last few years for Georgia have been. They've been a dramatic few years, and I think there was a little bit of a come down from all that drama during the 2023 season. And now you look forward to 2024, and these guys, they're stacked. They're stacked on the coaching staff. They're motivated, and they've got a ton of NFL talent. They've got what you need to win a national championship. And I think mentally, if it's eating Carson alive, it's probably not good for other football teams. Thanks for watching.